So now we've talked about this geolocation object in the navigator, what we want to do in this lesson is essentially ask for the permission to get the current user's position. Now this involves the permissions API under the hood, and this is something that we'll look at as we continue. However, for now we're going to just look at getting the user's current position and how it ties into our geolocation. So many of these APIs actually deal with this permissions location under the hood, and we'll explore these as we continue. So what we're going to do, much like many of these things, I like to create some kind of initialization function and then simply invoke it if our test passes. So inside of here, we're just going to simply call init if our geolocation does actually exist inside of our navigator. Now we know that it does in our browser, so what I'm going to do is just destroy our else statement and just leave our init function as is. So the first thing that we want to do is ask for the location. Now, you as somebody viewing this course will be in a completely different location to me, so we'll actually see some interesting results as we go through these. So the first thing that we're going to do is type navigator.geolocation. So you can see that we've immediately been presented with get current position, watch position, and then clear watch. So watch position and clear watch are actually tied in together, and get the current position is a single call which then requests the current position. Once the position has been requested, we can then request it again and again if we'd like to, and it won't keep prompting the user, which we'll see in a moment. So let's call this get current position. We'll have a look at the type definitions for this. You can see that we have a success callback as the first argument. We also have an error callback, and you see this question mark here. So this means that it is in fact optional. We also have a third argument which contains some options. Again, that is completely optional. And we have this void statement, which means that the function actually returns nothing. So let's first have a look at our success callback. Now, because this is called the position callback, you can see that this gives us a geolocation position object. So let's call the argument the position, and then inside of our function, we'll just simply log it out and take a look. So once we save this out, this is then going to ask us in the browser, and I'm very sure that you've come across this before, where you visit a particular website or an application, and it pops up saying it wants to know your location. So if you haven't used the geolocation API, you know exactly why this is happening. And this could be, for example, when you're looking to rent a house or purchase a new property or look up a location on Google Maps. It has so many different use cases that we might want to use that the website wants to know our location. Now, if we click block, this is going to block and it's not going to ask us again for the current location. However, we want to obviously click allow. This then gives us this geolocation position object, which is described in our type definitions. So if we go and expand our geolocation, you can see that we have a timestamp. It's up to you whether you want to use that or not. We then have the prototype, which contains the geolocation position, which simply then contains those coordinates, which are available as a public property here. So you can see that we have accuracy, we have altitude, altitude accuracy, heading, latitude, longitude, and finally speed. Now, because I'm not using a mobile device, we don't have some of these available. We don't know what altitude I'm at because I'm not using GPS. So if you were using some kind of mobile device, these might be available to you depending on the user's device. Now, typically with geolocation, we will just be using latitude and longitude, which then describe where we are on this planet. Now, instead of asking for this entire position object, what I like to do is ask for just this coords property. So what we can in fact do in our function arguments is then go ahead and just destructure it, which means that when we save this out, we don't get the timestamp, we just get our nice geolocation coordinates. We could then say inside of here that we want to destructure the latitude as well as the longitude, and we can assign it the result of our coords. Now you could destructure this inside of here. I just like to keep this nice and clear, and I think this is a better way to do it with the value that's already been destructured. So then at this point, what we could say is console log the latitude followed by the longitude. We can then save those out and we have some nice numbers, which then tell us the particular values. So there's a few things that I want to do. The first is just take our function and we're going to just break these out just to keep these a bit nicer. So we're going to call this the handle success function, which means above we're going to create the handle success equals, and then we can just simply assign it this value. Now this is something I like to do just because we can pass in multiple arguments to our get current position function. Now, before we go any further, what I want to actually show you is a nice little shortcut that allows us to then see and reset the permissions. So you can see by clicking this button up here, you can see that we are allowing the location. If we were to block it and then refresh the page, you can see that absolutely nothing happens. We would in fact get an error. So in the next few videos, we'll be adding some error handling. But if we go back and set it back to ask, close this and give it a refresh, you can see that it's now asking for our location. We've given the permission to do so, which means anytime we refresh, you can see that we do not have to keep asking for the user's permission. So once it's been granted to you, we can request that permission at any time. So this is just the start. This is how we can get the latitude and the longitude. And we've also talked about having a mobile device with things like accuracy, the speed, the altitude, and so forth. So that's it for this lesson. It's a nice, quick and easy one. We'll jump into the next lesson, talk about some error handling, and then start to slowly build out this project.